Hi, this is Matt at State of Flux here with a review for Batman Forever. Before I move on, I have to ask a question. Why is this movie not called Batman and Robin? This movie is about Batman and Robin. And the next movie, which was the fourth one, which is called Batman and Robin, was not called Forever. Whatever. I digress. This is an interesting movie in that this movie retroactively has been kind of feeling a sense of vitriolic hate because of Batman and Robin. And it's fascinating to me because while Batman and Robin may not be good, this movie kind of is. And people just kind of retroactively hate on it because they're lumping the two together. And this is something we've seen before in comic book fare. Spider-Man 3 had a very poor reception upon release, which got people to reevaluate the first two movies and kind of dunk on them for being cheesy and lame and stupid. And then, as the years have passed, people kind of came around and pulled their head out of their own asses and were like, you know what, Spider-Man 1 and 2 are great, and we were actually kind of hard on the third one. It may not be great, but it's certainly not as bad as what would come later. And maybe that's the issue here. People have never really come around on Batman Forever, but I remember when this movie came out, and most people kind of liked it. Certainly they liked it better than the previous film, which is kind of fascinating because of the reverence the first two Batman films kind of hold. And this one just never got its due. However, there were obvious criticisms, and I recognize them right off the gate. However, the first one I want to talk about that everybody's going to hit you with, which is the Joel Schumacher of it all, those people are wrong. Let's just put that out there front and center. If your problem with this movie is the glitz and glam that Joel Schumacher brings to this film, you're out of your GD mind, because Schumacher brings the first sense of comic book ownership, the sense of captivating visual style to the Batman franchise that Tim Burton never could. These movies are action movies. Batman Forever is an action movie, and a pretty damn good one at that, because Joel Schumacher knows how to shoot action. He knows how to shoot heroic, larger-than-life characters. Tim Burton had no idea how to do that, so when he shot them in an almost full-body pose, and they just would stand there kind of like you would hold an action figure, and he didn't really know what to do with it. He knew how to make sweeping, beautiful shots of the landscape around Batman and Penguin, say, but when Batman and Penguin were in the same frame together, it was awkward as hell. Joel Schumacher is not that filmmaker. He knows how to shoot super interesting sweeping shots of the city with its gargantuan statues of almost Grecian art sculptures standing there, which is why, logically speaking, Batman has nips on the Batsuit. So when you attack Batman's nips on the Batsuit, it's there for a reason. It's designed to make them look like these Herculean figures that they are. He just added that to the breastplate. And if you have such a problem with nipples, maybe you're the problem. That came off a little harsh. I apologize. But that's something that's kind of rubbed me the wrong way for years. There are valid criticisms for this film, but attacking the aesthetics and stuff like that is not one of them. However, I do concede that some of the visuals in this film do get a little busy. And that also kind of works for me to a point. But I don't think it's the visuals that necessarily get busy, it's just that so much information is being thrusted upon us so fast in such a small amount of time that we're not allowed to breathe. And I feel like that is really more the producers having their say. If you listen to Kevin Smith's story of how he had to write Superman Lives, and how John Peters kept interfering with his screenplay and saying there needed to be an action beat every 10 minutes or people are going to lose interest. you understand that that story was written around the same time this movie debuted in theaters. It's the same principles, including same producer, landing that on this film. There are nonsensical battles with Two-Face in the streets of Gotham that completely interrupt the story and allowing the film to have a moment to breathe, because they're afraid that the character work in this film is not going to be enough for you, and you need action just happening in front of you for you to be okay. And weirdly enough, those are the scenes you skip the most, are the action moments between Two-Face and Batman. Two-Face is the other major criticism this has, and it's not that Billy D. Williams, is not in this movie. He should have been Two-Face, oops. That Tommy Lee Jones is bad in the movie. He's quite good, but he's not playing Harvey Two-Face, because he's never truly two-faced up until his character's demise. In fact, there's a moment in the film that frustrates me, and frustrated me even when I watched it back then, having never read a Batman comic to that point, when I first saw this in theaters, where you have Two-Face flipping the coin and it lands and it's not the thing he wants, so he keeps flipping the coin until he gets the response he wants, and then he pulls out his gun and shoots. And that's not being two-faced. That's being singly motivated, single-mindedness, and that's absolutely not what that character is. Two-Face is the big issue. As I say, Tommy Lee Jones plays the character well, but essentially he's just playing a redressed Joker. This movie could have been a team-up between Joker and Riddler. Riddler goes large with the movie, and it feels not out of place from the 60s Batman. And he probably goes a little too large in this film. Joel Schumacher probably would have done better to rein his performance in and ground it. But Jim Carrey does have not only some of the stronger comedic beats of the film, as he is, Jim Carrey, but he also has some of the more emotionally resonant beats. The moment that his idol Bruce Wayne lets him down, and he has that close-up moment where he says, "I'll make you understand," and every bit of emotion is being held within him and turning towards anger and hatred, is such a well-performed scene. That's one of my favorite moments in this movie. But Riddler goes probably a little larger than is necessary for the film, but when you're Jim Carrey, it's 1995, and you just had three of the most successful films of 1994 come out months apart from each other, you kind of get to do whatever you want. And I feel like that is kind of what they were leaning into. They're like, oh, you like The Mask? We'll give you more of The Mask. You like Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber? We're going to give you more of that here. But this time, Batman will punch him in the face. So I've been talking kind of negatively, and I have one last criticism I would like to land before I land on all of my positives, which is the screenplay for this movie is an excellent dissection of Bruce Wayne and the duality of Bruce Wayne and Batman, and the duality within every character that we have on film. So it makes perfect sense that Two-Face is your big bad. But then they forgot to write Two-Face as a two-faced character, so the thing falls flatter than it's intended. Criticism's over. What I want to talk about is what works. I think Val Kilmer gave a good performance as Batman. Better in a lot of ways than Michael Keaton, not because he's a better actor than Michael Keaton, but because he had more to do. This is the first time Batman in a live-action feature film got to explore the Bruce Wayne of it all, as well as the Batman of it all. And even still, Val Kilmer kind of complains in his documentary Val that playing Batman is a thankless job because by nature you don't really speak that much. But what he's given in this film is interesting and far more complex and spoken aloud than anything in the prior two movies. I really like the character of Chase Meridian until she becomes the damsel in distress, which this franchise has a problem with repeatedly and often, unless that character is Catwoman. But Chase Meridian being the one to kind of explore and discover Bruce through allowing him in a therapeutic way to discover himself and reveal himself on his own terms. This isn't Vicky Vale being let into the Batcave. This is Batman letting Chase into his life and Batman being part of his life. She is going to be let in on that too. And that was kind of interesting and compelling to me. His exploration of what happened to him as a child and the true moment he chose to become the Batman is some of the best segments of the film, and stuff that I think a lot of people kind of forget, that this was explored even before Batman Begins. I also really like everything that was done with the character of Robin. Robin was written in an interesting way. Now we have the character of Dick Grayson, but they kind of give him the personality of Jason Todd from the comics, but you can see how he is a character that is going to follow a track where he will become Dick Grayson's Nightwing from the comics. And that worked for me, kind of the blend of the two major Robin characters in order to get one who is going to become his own, and how Robin, who has this furious need for vengeance, and he has to kind of bisect his life as being the Dick from before and the Robin moving forward, and how he has to choose to listen to what Batman has to say about how vengeance isn't going to solve anything, but you can do good with the abilities you have. That is all explored exceptionally well, and Chris O'Donnell is fantastic in the role. That is clearly written for a 15-year-old, and since that dude was like 30, it was just awkward as hell to watch. However, that's something that is not unheard of the era. You watch anything from 1995, 96 in that era dealing with teens, they're all played by 20-something-year-olds. Buffy the Vampire Slayer had Charisma Carpenter playing Cordelia, and she was literally 27 years old, the same age as the actor playing Angel. You have most of the cast of Scream in their mid to late 20s, all playing, I think Sydney is supposed to be 16 in that movie, maybe 17, but yeah. So it's not unheard of having like way too old for the role actor. It's the fact that he's written to be 15 but looks so old, and then Bruce is carrying him around like, I've adopted you. It's just kind of visually funny, unintentionally so. The other thing that I think is kind of neat is that this is very much viewed as the third Batman movie, and it's like produced by Tim Burton, but never read to me as the third Batman movie. This read to me as kind of the first reboot of Batman. You have no visual styling that connects it to the earlier couple movies. The bat suits, the Batmobile, the Batcave, the mansion, all look completely different. The only two elements that remain the same are Alfred and Commissioner Gordon. But now that we have like the Flash movie, that even kind of is explained away as well with the spaghetti noodle theory. So to me this really is another origin story for Batman, a different take, which is why Joker clearly isn't the one who killed his parents in the alley in the flashback scenes. I like how Riddler ties into the story, and his reverence for Bruce Wayne that becomes hatred for Bruce Wayne and having to stop Batman from figuring out who he is, but seeing if he can challenge Batman. Like, that was kind of neat. I like the idea of having Two-Face as a villain. Two-Face was always my favorite character in the comics, and that was something that happened after I saw this movie, but I loved the visual look of him that I started to explore the Two-Face comics and the animated series and how Harvey Dent was portrayed in that. And it's something that I've really grown to love about the DC world, is how interesting and complex, but also not complex, Two-Face is. So they didn't quite stick the landing, and I think that's the thing that holds this movie back from being genuinely the best Batman movie of the 90s. That said, if you want action, this movie's got action, and it's handled well with very good visual effects. This movie has digital effects, but the digital effects throughout look fantastic and genuinely hold up to scrutiny today. I couldn't believe how well they held up. Some of them I'm not even sure if they were CG. I had to kind of pause the movie to see if it really was or not. And if you pause it, you can kind of see a little better. But the way they're utilized is really strong. I like the look of the Batmobile. The Batmobile is really kind of great looking in this film. I like the use of the colors, how they created the Blacklight gang. That was really fun. I like Drew Barrymore in this film. She's there, and the Sugar and Spice. That was kind of fun. The whole art decoration for everything, they had a lot of fun with, and I did too. And this is a pretty solid incarnation of what you'd get from kind of 60s, 70s Batman comics. It worked for me, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think that if you were very dismissive of this movie, maybe go back and see if you're not impregnating your thoughts with memories of Batman and Robin more than this film itself. This film is strong. There are silly moments that don't work, but most of the movie kind of does. This is a 3-star movie for me. It's not as, I think, as Batman movies, it is better than the 2 previous Batman films, but it has more flaws than either of those films had as individual films, if that makes any kind of sense. So kind of, if you've been following, all of my 90s Batman movies have all been given 3 stars, including the animated Mask of the Phantasm. There you have it. I like Batman Forever. Let me know what you think of the film in the comments down below, and next week we will tackle Batman and Robin. It's going to be fun. Have a week. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Peace.